Welcome to Viewpoint, Hexagon Safety, Infrastructure, and Geospatial Division's vodcast series. And I'm your host, Jack Williams. And today we're going to be tackling a subject that I'm personally curious to learn more about, the subject of cybersecurity, and in particular, how it affects public safety agencies. Cyber attacks are increasing everywhere across all industries. But of particular note, with things like ransomware attacks, is the public safety sector. Specific concerns include theft of sensitive data, cyber hacktivism, cyber terrorism, and even cyber warfare, which goes beyond compromising sensitive data to crippling a community or even an entire region. For example, by shutting down your 911 communications or a power grid. Thankfully, public safety technology is rapidly evolving, particularly when it comes to the cloud. And there's a lot of benefits with the cloud, from significantly reducing the cost and complexity associated with an agency's needs and cybersecurity upgrades. Modern cloud solutions are very capable of securely storing the applications and data needed for emergency response agencies. And so this is a very big topic, and very fortunate to have a colleague of mine who I've known very well, probably the smartest person in our company on this space. So I'm pleased to welcome Tunda Farrell, who's our Vice President of Cloud Technologies and DevOps. Welcome, Tunda.
Hey, Jack. How's it going?
I'm doing good. So let's dive right in, and let's talk about your typical public safety agency and how they might safeguard themselves against cybersecurity threats. A lot of people don't know what they don't know. Cybersecurity threats are a big risk. It's a challenge. In your eyes, what are some of those challenges that agencies face when assessing their risk and auditing their systems and plans?
Well, first of all, I think I wouldn't say typical public safety customer, because I think in this space, everybody's a little bit different. There's different risk calculations that each agency goes through. Some of the risk calculations are based on, natural disaster type threats. So, you want to have a secure PSAP, but you also need to be able to be flexible and move to another location. There is a lot of investment, I think our agencies do, in their IT department and their security. And they're actually asking us a lot tougher questions than they used to. Like, what are you doing around security? And please prove it to us. And let's discuss how you guys are looking at security. These kind of questions we didn't used to get. So frankly, I think it's good. Everybody should be, vigilant. Securing your system and your site is a shared responsibility. So we can provide secure code and deployment recommendations, but for an on-premise deployment, it's really on the agency to enact those and to secure their data center. In the cloud, it's a little bit different. We have a lot more responsibility in that space, and we have a lot of tools at our disposal to use.
So, okay, well, so let's take a look at it then. You mentioned the cloud, obviously on-premise. A little bit of more of that onus is on the agency themselves. But when we move to the cloud, or move some elements to the cloud as we evolve and modernize in public safety, I think what a lot of people want to know, or what are the benefits? I know it's very broad, but in your experience, and for the audience, what are the benefits in general of cloud technology, and especially for like a conservative market such as public safety?
Well, I think the investment that the cloud platform providers are putting towards security is something that no agency can match. Microsoft, up to 2015, committed $1 billion per year for cybersecurity investment in their platform. In I think it was 2018, they committed to $20 billion investment in the next 5 years. So that's a fourfold investment. I don't think any agency is investing that much in security. So, when you go to the cloud, you're really going to, a best of breed platform that is continually investing. Microsoft is unique in that they've been focusing on security for years. I mean, just think about the patches you get with Windows and the security updates, et cetera. They've really come to the forefront, I think, a leader in security. They have just released recently Microsoft Defender for endpoints, which allows you to secure your endpoints. So let me just give you an example. When we deploy to the cloud, and an endpoint is an access point, like a website, a web URL, or maybe an API endpoint, or an endpoint for mobile devices or interfaces. If we deploy our application and don't secure the endpoints, let's just say in development, people want to get in and look at stuff. Immediately, we have brute force attacks from Russia, China, and Iran. And we can tell where they're coming from because that's part of the security we get from Microsoft Azure. But it's immediate, and they're brute force attacks. So what that means is they are just hitting those endpoints. And even if we have them secured, with a password or something or authentication, they just try to break it. So that's the brute force aspect of it. So they'll just keep running and running and running, with a bot to try and guess the password. And if it's not complex, it can be a matter of hours. So, securing your endpoints is really important. We have so many tools that are available for us that we don't have on-prem. So we collect metrics and application insights through the logs. We have event hubs. So if there is the application is having some type of issue, it can proactively say, hey, I'm having a problem. We have Microsoft Defender, which is a sort of an umbrella security platform that is at the hardware level, at the software level. We can enforce security with network security groups where only certain entities, principals, services, IPs, et cetera, can pass into virtual networks. So we have a lot of tools at our disposal, and then also a lot of information capture. So we get security alerts in real time that we then we have different levels of security alerts. So based on the level, there's a different response that the cloud operations team does. So we are proactively monitoring using the tools at our disposal to keep our sites secure. Another really, I think, important thing is the data. Like how is your data secured and replicated, et cetera. So we use the business critical tier of the data layer in Azure. And what that gives you, it's pretty cool. You get geographically redundant database instances, and then you also get zonally aware. So what that means is when data is written to the database, it is synchronously also written to 3 other data centers within a Azure availability zone. So you've got 3 copies of your data in your region. It is then asynchronously written to a secondary region, and in that secondary region, it is then again written out to 3 different data centers. So you, in effect, have 6 copies of your data at all times. And that's just what you get with that business critical tier. We're not doing anything to enforce this. This is Microsoft and the tools they give us. So I think just with a couple of these examples, you can see that we really have a lot more tools at our disposal. We can really, I think, secure the environment, the infrastructure, the application, the network, and the endpoints, all with tools that are provided from Microsoft. But then we can also monitor and capture insights as we are live and running these tools. Microsoft just released products that will help assist us hardening for 0-day type of issues. A 0-day issue is where there's a vulnerability, but there isn't a patch yet. So as a vendor, we have 0 days to fix it. And so you want to be able to quickly react and secure those types of endpoints or vulnerabilities in the cloud. And we have the tools to do that.
Yeah,
I mean, it's the question, Jack.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like to me. I mean, with Microsoft spending that much money, us using their tools, being proactive in our monitoring, using the business critical tier features that are provided by Azure, for that automatic failover and those multiple levels of redundancy. That should alleviate a lot of concerns. That said, I'm going to pose the question to you, Tunda, of public safety. We've been in this space for a while. Traditionally risk averse, understandably so. People's lives are on the line, very critical work. So, keeping communities safe is the number one priority. And a lot of times innovation just means take what I have today and make it work better. But when you talk about things like moving to the cloud or leveraging some of the advantages of the cloud, what would you say to them if they're on the fence or a little hesitant about the cloud? I mean, personally, I think it's a little bit might be a lack of understanding. But what are your thoughts, about folks who might be hesitant to make that leap?
Well, I think the cloud is a really bad name for the cloud, because the cloud doesn't sound very sturdy to me. Like when I think of a cloud, I think it's something blowing around or moving or, it's not strong. And I think that was just a failure in naming, but I don't think it just the name, occurred organically. The cloud is really a data center. Once I tell people and say that, you're really just talking about a data center that is being run by one of the biggest, most advanced technology companies in the world, and then it's a little bit different, right? I do think there's a couple of things that should be cleared up around the cloud. So the cloud is physical. It's a data center and groups of data centers and regionally connected data centers. So what you get, and this isn't just specific to Microsoft, these are, cloud platform providers provide what they call availability zones. So what that is three or more data centers network together to really give you the ability to spread your deployment across three physical locations. So if one location has a storm and power goes out, you still have two other locations that are running your software. And it's complicated. So I'm really glad Microsoft takes care of it for us. But basically, you've got three copies of things running. Why are there three? Because if you have two and one went down, then you'd have a single point of failure. So you always have three. So, you get that in the cloud. So instead of just having one data center you have to deal with, and how do I fail over to the secondary one? You get sort of out of the box three data centers. And then you have that fail over to a secondary region. A region is further apart, so they're not networked together because you'd have that network latency. So you might have another region would be US West, where US East could fail over, but you wouldn't want to have that live because it would just be slow. I think there's a misunderstanding about the cloud always being cheaper. I don't know that it's always cheaper. I think people, for some reason, assume it's cheaper, but honestly, it's the bare cost is somewhat similar, but you start to get efficiencies in the cloud. You also don't have to have all of your hardware staged waiting for your biggest disaster. So if you're, public safety, and at certain times of the year you have a festival or you have a demonstration or something. So you have to prepare to have infrastructure and hardware to meet the demand of those special occasions or special events at your disposal, because you don't want to have to add it while the thing's occurring. So you're paying for dormant hardware. Whereas in the cloud, you get elasticity. So you're not paying for your biggest demand at all times. You have it at your disposal. And if your applications are architected in such a manner that they can expand horizontally to meet demand, then you do get cost efficiencies there. Another thing that you get with the cloud was that geo redundancy, the copies of your data, the security you can get. But there are things that I know agencies that we're seeing when we go to the cloud or they come to the cloud that they're just not used to. They're used to getting in and touching their servers and looking at them, and you don't get that with the cloud. So I think that's a difference that is uncomfortable, but really we see everything. And so as part of our managed service, we really don't want you to have to go look at it or manage it. You're paying for us to do that. Another thing you get with the cloud I think is a really big benefit when you look at climate change. I live in an area that is, near the water, and I can't tell you how many more flood alerts, high water alerts that we've had in the past few years that we never have. I know that we're seeing stronger storms, we're seeing hurricanes at odd times of the year, or they're growing exponentially more than they used to. So I think climate change is really on a lot of people's minds, and specifically public safety. So if you need to move or go somewhere that's not where you're typically located, you're on the cloud, so you can easily go somewhere else, and your application is still available to you. We've got customers that want to maybe fail to the cloud. So like they want to have on-prem, but if something occurs, they want to have a DR to the cloud. And we're actually looking at that. There's also the idea of DR to on-prem. So there's a lot of flavors that are emerging. And I will say that my team is working with Microsoft. I mean, they're pushing us and we're pushing them. They are releasing new products all the time. And as they are released, we take advantage of them. And then we talk to Microsoft. We're like, hey, we're trying to do this. It doesn't work. They're like, oh my gosh, you might be the only customer trying to do this. Let's get together and work with you. So the other thing you get with the cloud is you get technological advancements just as they're coming. You don't have to wait for them. They are getting pushed out by the cloud vendors. So I think I would say is you're getting a flexibility of where your application is running and where people need to be to access it. You are getting innovations just at a near record speed. You are getting data center redundancy just out of the box. Now, I know there's one thing that people are always worried about, and that's connectivity. And I hear that all the time. Like, well, what happens if we can't get to the cloud? Well, yeah, that's important to have a discussion around. So there are a lot of technologies that are available to persist connections. We are actually partnering with a company that deploys, networks to battlefields. It's pretty cool, and they have these devices where we can access satellite, we can access internet, we can access multiple pathways to get to Azure. We also are looking at redundancy to, like I was saying, to on-prem. There's also the thought of redundancy to another cloud. But the question I would ask agencies is when they ask about connectivity, what do you do now? Because I know most agencies have mobile towers, they have hotspots. There are a lot of applications that are running now today that need connectivity. We can work with all of the agencies. That we have a lot of different options at our disposal, but that to me is sort of the last piece of reluctance. Jack, I would like to add that during COVID, we saw an acceleration of embracing the cloud, because all of a sudden industries that really weren't embracing it, you look at medicine. I mean, how many people now go to see their doctor with a televisit rather than actually going to the doctor's office? Like, if I'm sick, I don't want to go to the doctor's office, and I don't want to be, if I'm not sick, I don't want to be around sick people. But you can see like that industry has changed. We have seen a real uptick in our public safety RFPs, that are really asking for the cloud, that have a cloud component. So that acceleration that we see with our customers, the cloud vendors also saw that same acceleration. And so they had to quickly release new features and new things that we were clamoring for Microsoft to release and add. And they've actually met this problem and this surge in demand with just increased production and innovation. And so I really see that this acceleration is really, it hasn't slowed down. And I would think that the cloud is really going to start to tip, and you're going to see more agencies going to the cloud than not.
Hey, Tunda, so with regards to, and that was an excellent answer. I like what you said. Why do we call it the cloud? This sound kind of fluffy and floaty. One other thing with the benefits, right? So as the space is evolving, so you've got more data sources coming in, you've got IoT, you've got things like drones, you've got different workflows such as dispatching mental health workers, you've got the integration with third party or other, our partners, technology vendor partners like Rapid SOS or What Three Words. And then we have integration and interoperability that, while I think people want to get there, there's challenges from a more of a workflow. And I know this is cybersecurity conversation, but there are some benefits associated with the cloud when it comes to integration, advanced analytics, adopting next generation standards, aren't there? Can you comment on that at all?
Well, yeah, the cloud gives you that scale, right? Like if you were going to collect the I can't say the word. If you're going to collect the data that's coming in from all the IoT devices, you would have to have a lot of storage for that data. And then you want to be able to sort of pipe that data in and massage it and pull out the pieces you want and then pass it to maybe something else. And that entity can pull out the information it needs and pass it on. So you get a collaboration platform when you go to the cloud. You also get a lot of other players on the cloud that you can share data with. I know that Hexagon is invested heavily in connecting different information sources and providing a picture to our customers where you can see and share data, but then you can also secure what data you want to share and what data you don't want to share. But you can start to share that source of truth across a consortium or multiple partners that are looking at the same problem. Like one of the really, I think, interesting things we're seeing is that some of these consortiums are coming together. It used to be to save money, like, hey, let's share these things to save money. But what I'm seeing is that they actually want to share data and share that single source of truth. So when there's an active shooter incident and you've got, county agencies, city agencies, federal agencies, all these different agencies coming together to work on this, high profile incident, you want to be able to share the data and have one source of truth. In the past, it wasn't possible because a lot of these agencies are coming in with their own software, their own data sharing, their own communication channels, and you couldn't get that. On the cloud, we are better able to collaborate and share a lot of this data. So we have a product called Hexagon Connect, which is really there to help, connect disparate data sources and partners that want to share data and have a single source of truth, but share the data that's appropriate to share and not share the data they don't want to share. We have consortiums within public safety where there are multiple agencies, cities, locales, all coming together to use our software to share the data they want to share, but not share the data they don't want to share. It's really interesting, I think, in this space. Some of our competitors, they come in, they're cloud first, and they built their solution to work in the cloud and honestly to be cheaper to add more agencies. So with that kind of architecture, you typically have, an application that everybody's sharing and you have slices for the tenants. And then you either have their own data sources or you have the data, but it's segregated. So you can only sort of see your data. Mm-hmm. We come from a long history of data sharing before the cloud. So we have had multi-agencies. We support, tier 0 customers. So we've had this complexity of sharing data, this problem. We've been around us for a long time. And so our software is really advanced in sharing data within a deployment. So we have different levels of sharing that our competitors don't have. And we consistently, at our technical demonstrations, outshine them with our ability to share data on many different levels. And so that's just within our application. But then you go to the cloud And we've got, platforms where we're sharing data with Hexagon Connect. We have integration platforms that allow cloud to cloud integration, where we have integration hubs that will, we're working right now to add Azure Functions into our integration hub. So that way, once Azure Functions are part of our integration toolkit, you can use any language just that Azure Functions supports. You can write and sort of own your own code within our integration hub. So you can, I know I'm getting really technical, but it's really exciting. You can tell I'm sort of geeking out on this, but we've got a lot of investment in data sharing. We are adding more robust capabilities to our endpoints so that we can share our data in a more granular manner, so people don't have to get everything and sort of root through it. We're adding more targeted endpoints for targeted workflows because we can share more on the cloud, just as you brought up, Jack.
So if we're talking about sharing, I guess, which I think it presents all kinds of opportunities in the space. And I do agree with you. I think that's something that Hexagon does very well. And we've been doing it since the legacy on-premise stick client days to now gaining all the advantages of the cloud with that scalability and a more services-based approach and sort of this services-driven architecture. How do we, from a security standpoint, ensure that the data access is in compliance with privacy standards? Sort of separating, hey, this guy or this data is only accessible to this person and then this agency, et cetera. Can you explain that a little bit more? I mean, there's a lot of advantages, but how would.
So what I brought up when we first talking here was that Microsoft continues to make advances, and one of their newest thing is Defender for Endpoint. I think it's called Plan 1. No, yeah. Plan 2 is the older one. You'd think they'd go the other way. And that infrastructure and security tooling allows us at a very low level to secure endpoints, and not at a data level, but at a more of a IP level, and what can come in, what can come out, and then also what services can access it. So there's you can secure identities and people, but you can also secure services. So like an application or a service would maybe be allowed, but maybe other services wouldn't. So that's at a technical sort of IT level. There is also role-based security within our applications, so we can say who can view what data. Then you go a little bit higher and you can say what data am I going to share. We have because it's public safety, we have a little bit of different kinds of data that we have to be really vigilant about. So we can't have CJIS data in our logs, right? So we can't have data that has criminal information in our logs. So we are very careful to make sure we don't have any of that data coming and available for other people to look at. When you send data to maybe another third party, we have tooling on our side that will determine what the data is that will be sent. We can also, at our integration hub, determine what service can have access to the data. We also, obviously, everything is authenticated and token-based, et cetera. So we can ensure that we verify and authenticate what is coming in to receive data. And then we also have, like I was saying, tools that will secure the data and the view of the data and what you can see. So we have security at the endpoint level, we have security at the service level, and then we have security at the application level. If you're using one of our tools to actually share data, you can then determine who has access to that data, how long they have access to that data, and what parts of that data they can see. Did that answer your question, Jack?
Yeah, to be honest, it sounds like you have more granularity over the control of your data when you have an architecture like that, as opposed to maybe more of a legacy architecture where Yeah, you've seen some of these interfaces out there. You never know what type of interface has been built or integration that's some sort of stovepipe thing that's just in the ether.
Well, what we're
Um,
also doing here at Hexagon is we've sort of taken the approach that, back in the day, legacy day, the interfaces, like you were saying, were sort of, I don't want to say loosey goosey, but they were not looked at as a vulnerability or potential risk that they are now.
yeah,
And so all of our interfaces for on-call are developed under our AnySure process. And basically that is, bringing our global technology center best practices to our regional development and our global services. So what that means is we are running scans on the code. We are running, we do not only scans, we do dynamic access. We review the code for code reviews, and then we are also reusing components so that when we build our interfaces, we're building it in building blocks. And so that if somebody needs to build another interface, maybe there's 3 things that exist, but you need to extend it a little bit because it's a little bit different for this interface, but 5 of the components are the same. It's that 6th one that's different. So when we reuse it, we got more eyes on the code. There are more people reviewing it. We are upgrading any tools or utilities that are part of those integration stacks so that you have the latest versions that the vulnerabilities are patched on as well. So I think that, we as a company have now sort of really embraced that not only is our core code important, but our interfaces and just that whole ecosystem needs to be secure.
yeah, because it's touching. I mean, it's connected, right? I mean, it's connected to the cloud, and it's touching, and those are potential vulnerabilities. But I mean, we've got to address them, and so I think you've given a very thorough explanation of sort of how we handle that and some of the tools we're using here. I guess I'll leave it up with this or leave it to this on the wrap up. Do you have anything else you'd like to mention or expound upon when it
Yeah, I
comes to?
would like to mention, one of the newer things that is coming in security. It's funny, like years and years ago, you'd have a security group, you'd have a development group, you'd have an operations group, and then you start to see DevOps. So DevOps was a thing that was new, believe it or not, where you've got the development group and the operations group more collaborating to build, deploy, provision, et cetera, your applications. Well, now you're starting to see DevSecOps, and that is security starting to come and be integrated within the whole sort of development lifecycle. And what it's really being called now is security is shifting left. So like I show you on my screen, it looks like I'm shifting right because it's backwards. But shifting left means that we're starting to bake security into the development process. So rather than running scans after software is built and identifying vulnerabilities or you're using libraries that are older versions, you need to go up. We're moving it more towards the left, meaning that in the development life cycle, we are running security scans every time there's a code build. Every time code is checked into our code repository, there's security scans running. So developers get immediate feedback on any potential vulnerabilities. We're trying to bring security into just the same space that writing code is, so that we're looking at it and thinking about it at the same time we're building our applications. We invest in penetration testing with third-party vendors that for all of our applications, we invest in on-premise pen testing, and we also invest in the cloud. And then when they're in the cloud, we also say, okay, let's say you can't break in, let's let you break in. And then once you break in, what can you do? And we've had, they can't even we let them in the first level and they can't get past the next level, which is great. So I just wanted to let our listeners know that, Hexagon is committed to security. We've invested in it. We are working hand in hand with Microsoft, and It's really exciting to see the collaboration between the development teams, the security teams, and the operations teams. And thank you, Jack. I really appreciate this opportunity to talk about a subject I'm really interested in.
Well, thank you, Tunda, and I want to say a big thank you for joining. I know you're very busy. It's great to hear from you and to learn about cybersecurity. I mean, it is something on the top of people's minds, and it's something you're passionate about and you have a lot of experience with. And we're very happy to have you leading the charge here at Hexagon and for educating our customers on today's podcast. So for everybody else out there, thank you for turning into Viewpoint. And for more great stories, videos, podcasts, visit hexagon.com. Thanks again, Tunda, and thanks everybody.
Thanks. Bye.